Hello, this is Joe with MOMFIT with Joe Peters in the Spanglish Radio World Network and the Her Network on Single TV channels 250 and 251. I want to say happy day. I hope that you had a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in and taking some time from your busy week to be here with us. Remember that if you are live with us, you can text, you can send a comment live in the audience through any of the channels Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and then we will see them here and we love to interact with our audience. Also remember to download the Single TV in the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. If you are downloading the app, make sure to rate it and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV can also be seen and found in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku Stick in all the smart TVs since 2016. And if you are a new in Mumford with Joe Peters, I want to remind you that our mission and our purpose is helping moms around the world to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. It is reminding all of you that we need a village and that motherhood is not a solo exercise. So, if you are not following me yet, please make sure to follow me on Joe Unicorn Coach on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and I handle my social media personally. So, if you have a struggle, if you are having a challenge, if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling that this is harder than you thought, then I would love for you to send me a message and tell me what is going on. If I cannot help you directly, I will find an amazing expert like Allison that will come to the show every Friday to talk about a specific topic that helps us. Because the reality, mom, is you don't have to do it all. You don't have to burn out in order to have a happy family, a happy life, and a happy kid. So I'm super excited to talk about a little bit of this topic today. I hope that you enjoy it. My request to all of you is find both of us in social media and share your feedback. Your feedback is super important for us and the network. Is with your feedback that we know which are the topics that we need to keep working on and finding experts. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Allison to our network today. We have been waiting for a long time to have Allison here. So, Allison is the visionary founder and CEO of Happy Camper Life, a pioneer platform that brings the enchanting world of summer camp to kids globally all year long. With over 25 years of experience in camp directing, Allison's journey has been as dynamic as it is inspiring. She started her career in law and transitioned through human resources before fully dedicating herself to enriching the lives of children through innovative camp experiences. Alongside her entrepreneurial ventures, Allison is also a seasoned coach that utilize the diverse backgrounds to mentor others. Her unique career path showcases her ability to leverage a vast toolbox of skills and experiences, guiding her through various professions and ultimating fulfilling her passion, her why, to bring the joy and learning to children everywhere. So, Alison, thank you so much for being here. And I would love, though, that we start into how you find that passion, how you move from law to HR to now move camps around the world to bring fun and learning to children.
Well, thank you, Joe, for having me. I am excited to be here. I've been really looking forward to this. Yeah, I mean, my journey is super interesting. I actually was a theater person. So I started in college studying theater and quickly realized that that really wasn't going to be the career for me. And everybody around me was applying to law school. And I was like, well, if they can go to law school, I can go to law school. So my journey didn't have very, very like distinct decisions. I kind of just was inspired by people around me. So I went to law school, and you talked about burnout. I ended up getting this job in this huge firm and working tons of hours while trying to have a child. And I couldn't get pregnant, and all of the stress was there. I took a leave of absence for 3 months. And the day before I was about to go back to work, I got a call from one of our clients, which was one of the biggest auction houses in the world. And they asked me to come help out for a while. And after 2 weeks of going there, they asked me to stay. So I became an in house lawyer. And then one day, the head of HR resigned, and they said, Allison, would you like to become the head of HR? And I was like, I don't know anything about that. I'm not sure I could do that job. I really knew nothing. And they said, we think you'd be terrific. So I just said yes. So I wasn't looking to make that transition. And I had every single day in that job, I just loved it. And one day, just one day, I had a bad day. And that day, we were driving up to visit my husband's summer camp that he grew up in. And every year we would go up to visit his camp. And we're in the car, and my daughter now was able to have a child. So my daughter's now 3 years old, sitting in the back seat. And I just sort of had this realization of how much time I was spending away from her. And every year, my husband would say, we should run a camp. We should run a camp. And I was like, you're crazy. Nobody runs a summer camp. That's not something you really do. And he's like, no, people do it. So that year, only because I had had that really just bad moment at work right before I got in the car, staring at my daughter in the back, I said, you know what? If we can do this as a family, I'm in. So we both quit our jobs. We bought a summer camp in Pennsylvania, and we started running the camp. And I will tell you, Joe, I was not a camper. I used to go to camp as a kid, and I would cry, and I was homesick, and it was far from anything that I thought I was ever going to do. But this idea of being together as a family and working with children was really inspiring. And so a few years into this experience, we decided to have another kid, because we were like, we're going to be around kids our whole lives. So we're going to have another one. So we had my son. Our kids are 7 years apart, which is a pretty significant stretch of time in between. And we've been running this camp. One day, about 5 years ago, my husband and daughter, and my daughter now works with me, so she is now my co-director, they went to South Africa, and they volunteered for an organization called Global Camps Africa to work with kids from the poorest townships of Soweto. And when they came back from this camp that they were helping run, and they were just counselors, even though at our camp, we like run the camp, their lives were changed. And my husband was so inspired. He's now on the board of Global Camps. He goes to South Africa and helps run these programs every year. And I said, well, how can we take everything that we have here at our summer camp and bring it to kids all over the world? And so I had this idea of Happy Camper Live, and this is before COVID. So taking all of this, these counselors and who were teaching basketball and ceramics and arts and crafts and music, and taking all of these great talents, and we started creating content. We started a blog, we started a podcast, Raising a Happy Camper. And all of this came together in this lifestyle brand that I've created called Happy Camper Live. And that's how we got here today. So lots of twists and turns, and a lot of just intuition of just saying yes at the right time.
And I think that that is a beautiful reminder for all the moms that are here, because I believe that we are very used to it to say that the only way to succeed is using our logic and having a plan, and that is a very masculine energy way to handle life. And we as female had that intuition, that power, and I love how you are showing that it was matter of following that intuition, like, and do something scary like quitting your stability of your jobs and going forward to something else. Now with that, before we go deeper into how we can do different ways to do that camper life and why it's so important that we spend time with our children and balancing our work and our life, Um, I ask every guest a phrase, and your phrase is very similar to one of my mantras. So let's gonna talk a little bit about that and why that is your favorite phrase. Allison's favorite phrase is, "When you look back at the journey, you will be in awe of how all the stars magically connect." And if you are a usual here in the show, you know that one of my mantras is, "The dots connect backwards." That
Yeah.
it is an engineer shorter way to say the phrase that Allison picked. So I love that we're aligned there. Tell me a little bit about why that is so important in your life and how you are being seeing it come through. Um, Not only I think we can see it with your career, but in other areas of your life.
Well, I can see it everywhere. I think in the moment, you don't see it at all, especially when you're, well, at least for me, when I was in my 20s, I think it was not understanding. But also, my best advice to sort of younger people looking at it is to just trust the universe, you know, and when you can trust that everything is sort of going to align, it doesn't always make sense at the time. It's that trust that I put into it. So knowing that I was going to leave a job like for a leave of absence and knowing I was doing that for myself, I didn't know where it was going to lead me. But going through the whole journey, I mean, this is the big part of it too. Everything that I learned, I've taken on with me, and it's just created this huge toolbox for me. So I just feel like being a theater person just helped me build the creative side. Being a lawyer helped me with these logical skills. You know, being in HR made me more of a people person, which I really had in a lot of interaction with people in a law, you know, class with my head down in the books. And I had really lost that part of myself. And then coming back and working with kids, having not had experience working with kids at all, you know, it was like, you know, I don't know, how am I going to do this? And there were so many points in my life, Joe, where I was just like, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't, they asked me to do this job. I'm running a summer camp. I didn't even like camp as a kid. How am I going to do this? So it is looking back and it's like, yeah, it all makes sense now. Like it all makes sense to me. And it gives me that comfort and trust that whatever it is that I do going forward, it is all going to align, you know, to support me in terms of who I am as a person and some of the goals that I've set out for myself in my life.
And I love that because I think that one big part of what we, especially as females moms, need to reclaim is that capacity of trusting
Yes.
that things happen for us, not to us. And I remember so well. I was laughing when you were saying that at the moment you don't understand. Like, I still clearly remember 2011, 2012, when I was still in Colombia, and I found out that my boss blocked a movement for me to be an expat in Asia.
Mm.
And at the moment, it was the end of the world, and I hate him, and I hate the world, and everybody was against me, and how dare him, and I was just crushed. But then that led to a couple of actions that I took later for me to end being in Alabama in the United States, where I met my husband, which with who I have now a beautiful 3 year old. That now, when I look back, I am super grateful with my boss at that time, because if I was in Asia, I don't even know if I will be married, or I don't know how my life will be. It will not be this perfect life that I have right now. So I love, love, love that. And that is a reminder to all of you to make that exercise. Try to look back to the past and say something that you hate in the past and how that shaped you into what you are now. And like Allison was saying, start finding that trust into whatever you are dealing with right now, as horrible and bad. And I'm going to be clear, neither of us is condemning bad things happening to you. Bad things happen and they suck. And what we are saying is having the trust that from that, there is something coming up that will make sense later on. So thank you, Alison, for that. Now let's going to talk a little bit about, this is one of the hittest topics from us, and we go over and over and over again with our guests. But um, what is balance for you? We were talking about in the backstage about balancing work and life and family life. What balance means to Allison in your world, in your family?
Okay, so Joe, I am confessing that I'm a workaholic and I have worked really hard in the past few years to find balance. So now I can say like I'm a recovering workaholic, right? So um, it was a very hard um, journey for me to find that balance. I think I was always able to bring my the priority for my children into the equation. That was not hard for me, but the me part of it, that part was hard. So the work, life, family, I feel like I was able to do all that, but finding the time for me and the things that like made me passionate. My husband's been really passionate about summer camp. I became passionate, but I have other passions. And so being able to be an entrepreneur was really important to me. I wanted to be a founder of Happy Camper Live, like take an idea and bring it to life like another child. And so that was really important to me. But at that time, my son was in high school, and I just didn't want to be going back to my workaholic ways where I was creating this new business and just ignoring everything else in my life. So I made a very conscious effort to rearrange my workspace and make sure it was in a closed room, and that I would leave the room even though I was working from home, and making sure that when I was with my son that I was present, that I volunteered for things in his school, that I was creating that time. And then one of the things I've always done for myself, and I was just there last night, is I sing. And so I make sure that I'm always in a singing class, or I'm taking a private singing class. I did that when I was in law school. So that's what brings me joy, which is singing, and bringing some more exercise into my life, because I was sitting at a desk all day and not really like doing anything for me in that regard. So I think it was just the me part of it, which is, understandable with all of the different things that we are all juggling. So that's kind of, I admit it's not easy to balance. And there's times during the summer, I'm 7 weeks paying attention to other people's children. I have 500 kids at my camp. So, and 300 staff, there's no me time. But when it's over, it's really important for me to reconnect to that before I just go back
Back.
into the world and start creating again.
And I think that one of the takeaways that all of you in the audience can have from this talk and is stop trying to normalize and generalize what balance is. Social media, Instagram, TikTok are very good at picturing what balance should be. And that balance is different for all of us.
Right.
Like, I will give you a very quick example on, for example, what I love on Allison. Have Allison is clear that her balance comes from seasons
Mhm.
because of the business that she's working on. So if she's trying during 7 weeks that she has 500 kids to also have the full self care that she does, she's going to get really stressed and feeling like a failure. But now she found balance in seasons. For some of you need to be per weeks. For some of you need to be per days. Define clearly what balance means to you because it's different for all of us. I was actually talking with some of my friends about that because three of my Latin friends, their houses are like model homes, like immaculate, perfect, and they all have little children. So we were talking about that because we were seeing a TikTok of a woman. And then one of the things that she said into how she was doing it all was she was like, well, I woke up at 4:40 in the morning. So then I was laughing with them. I said, like, there is not a model home that will be worth it enough in my life for
Right.
me to wake up at 4:40 in the morning to clean up. Like, that is not balance for me. So it's very important that we do. I love how Allison was very raw into there are times in this summer camp that there is imbalance. And when you were talking about that imbalance that bring you balance, I remember, if you are not seeing Eat Pray Love yet, please go watch Eat Pray Love. There is a scene at the end of the movie where she goes back to her guru and say, I'm losing balance, so I need to get away from this love because it's losing balance. And then her guru says, sometimes only losing balance, you find balance.
Mhm.
And I think that is a good reminder to all of us that what works for others will not work for you, because we don't have the same children, because we don't have the same passions, because we don't have the same movements. Now, Allison, talking a little bit about perfectionist, because I'm a perfectionist in recovery peer too. I want you to explore a little bit more into that transformation and that phase that you realize on how easy was for you and how much easier was for you if you had to sacrifice something, to sacrifice yourself and then feel everybody else. And then from there, move into this place of being an beacon of light and positivity, not only for your own family, but also for these 500 kids per year that come in touch with you, and how that inspire you into walking the talk, because I know that you walk the talk. You are walking the talk and talking the walk into that happier life, happier camper life, and what that means to you right now.
Yeah, well, I think that when I see younger children, I work with kids 7 to 15, 16 years old. And I think it is really important to be a great role model. And I also think that role models are really limited to kids. I think we have, sort of the parents and the teacher, who they may, sort of connect with during the year, or maybe there's, you kind of luck out in that regard. And maybe you have a coach. But the beauty of what we do in summer camp is there's just so many great role models around. So for me, it's an opportunity. I am the mom of the camp. So I do have to kind of, go through my experiences and how I deal with the kids. And they're not my children, truthfully, and how they've been raised is maybe very different than how I would have raised perhaps my kids. And, we all have our challenges. So I really try to meet the kids where they are, and I really try to refrain from judgment. And so I think that's really important for me, because I'm not there to criticize anything that's happened for this child, but to really to be there and to lift them up, and for them to be seen as a person. And I think sometimes kids just aren't seen that way. They're not able to express themselves. So I really like to listen and have them feel heard when I'm with them. So that's one thing that I've just been really practicing, is having people who have these connections and experiences and interactions with me, and having them feel heard, leaving them in a way that they feel that their time with me was spent in a way where they feel that they were gotten, and that I can leave them with some piece of wisdom, if it calls for it, that will move them or shape them in some way.
And I love how you are bringing this globally, because I grew up in Colombia, and the concept of a camp, summer camp, just exists in the movies. So I can imagine if you go to Colombia and take something like this, it will make the life of all those teenagers, because it will be like, oh my gosh, I am doing what I only see in the movies. I remember when I came here at 30 years old in 2013, I had that feeling with a lot of things. I was like, I only see this in the movies, and now it's here. So for the moms that are around the world, please go and check Allison Happier Camper Live information on how to do it. Now, I want to bring it from the 7 weeks into the most simple thing that moms around the world can start doing, into in a micro level, do that you do in the summer camp with the
Right.
children, into not waiting in for somebody else to do it completely, because the reality is Alison can pour her entire heart and life and blood and sweat for 7 weeks. That if in the other 45 weeks, the kids don't have even a small refresh or exposure to the same, it's going to be very challenging for them to get the progress that they could. So how we go from that big, because there are moms that are here and saying, oh, I need to watch this and I need to send my kids to camp next year. Figure there are moms that are either scared or don't see how that could be. So let's gonna talk about from the maximum to the minimum, how everybody can do something around that happier camper life in their families.
Absolutely. So, what we did, the whole purpose of Happy Camper Live was to bring camp to you. So, for kids that can't afford to go to camp geographically, there isn't a camp. Culturally, their camp doesn't exist, at least even American style summer camp like you see in the movies. My platform gives kids the feeling of being at camp. There's even a web series on there where you can actually watch, and it's just like the movies of kids going through the relationships and building friendships and things at camp. So, what I think of camp as is all the time that kids are not in school. So, it's the after school, it's the weekends, it's when you're off on fall break or Christmas holiday. And, you're sitting there and all your kid wants to do is what? Go on social media or, search on YouTube. But our platform is a learning platform. So, we help kids find their passion. We expose them, and this is what we do at camp, to all kinds of activities, whether it's music or art or sports or science, whatever those things are. We bring it to the kids and we have them try things. So by trying lots of different things, you get to really be exposed to something and then say, wow, you know what? I really like that. And the reason why I figured all this out, Joe, is because of my son. Okay. Because my son, he was a young kid who was extremely bright and needed a lot of like stimulation. And so he went from building puzzles to learning chess to doing science experience. And then finally he landed on music and he became a percussionist. And he's actually on Happy Camper Live. He's doing some percussion there. And he now graduated from college and he does classical percussion and conducting, but he's also a computer science person. Okay. So, but finding his joy was what drove him all the way through his successes in his life. And he did that through the experience of camp, of being exposed to all of these different things. Did he love sports? No, but he can kick a soccer ball. Does he like tennis? No, but he knows how to hold a racket. Does he love art? Yeah, actually he does. He loves to draw. So all of those things, they're there. It's just one big package of experiences for kids to have. And it's so entertaining. And the way we did build the site was that we made it so that you didn't have to have a lot of things with you. You could learn to play tennis with your hand. And then the one day there's a racket, you're going to know how to pick it up because, you tried it with a frying pan or something like that. So we always assume that the kids are going to be learning. We even teach kids to water skate. Like they may never have that opportunity, but if you're sitting in your living room, you can see, wow, you know what? This is really cool. And then the opportunity shows up one day, you go, I want to try that. I saw that. It looked like fun. So it's all about inspiration, what we do. And you can be inspired anywhere in the world, wherever you are. That's what we do. We bring it right to the kids.
And that is such an important being almost like what they call a helicopter mom. I actually, that is what I ask you into, is that is, I don't think, because of my background in Colombia, because the reality of gun violence in the United States, I don't think that I will be able to send my kid for 2 3 weeks away from me and survive. So I think that what you are bringing is also a fulfill need into that, into let's find something good for everyone and something that inspire everyone. And I love how you put it into, it's not in the summer, it's also in the afternoons, it's also in the weekends. And the reality is that we have parents that at the moment are exhausted to even start thinking on what else we can do. So not because they don't want to, but because they are exhausted, they reverse to the easiest thing, that is put something in the TV unless all those going to be zombies there. But when we have something like this where it's just like, hey, let's gonna pick activity from here and let's do it, then
Right.
you also take the burn from the parents to keep thinking and creating new things for their kids. Now, Allison, with that, what are some of those tips that you can share with the moms that are listening to us around the world into time management, into that forever non-stopping to-do list that we have in our mind? I was actually thinking about that today because my 3-year-old was having a challenging time, and his dad was like, let's do it together, and he was like, no, I want mommy. And so what are some of those tips that you learn through your career, through your experience with your family, into time management, and what is time management for you?
Great question. So, well, the first thing I just want to respond to is the whole to do list. So, the one thing that I do is I get everything out of my head. So, whatever pops into my head, even if it was on this call, just to clear the space, I would write down, buy coffee, right? If I know that there's just something that's like spinning in my head, I will use my notes in my phone. I always have post-its. I always have things by my computer that are just like places to collect notes, because I don't want my thoughts, like these little things that I need to do, taking up all the space in my head. So the moment I can just grab them, put them out of my head, and then come back to them at another time to organize it, that's what I do. So I dedicate a certain morning of the week, and it's Saturday morning. I gather all my little pieces of paper from all over the house, wherever I've left them, next to my bed, next to my computer. I gather them up, and then I formulate my to-do list. I always rewrite my to-do list once a week too. So when I go through, I'm very focused on getting that out. As far as my time management, I time block. So what I really do is I put into my calendar, depending, now I've got a lot of different things going on. I've got a live summer camp, I've got a Happy Camper Live, I've got my coaching business, I'm actually developing some games for kids. So I have to block out time for my family, for my husband, for the two of us as a couple. I block out time for myself and my time for work. And I do that on my calendar in different colors. So that way it's really clear when I'm making a commitment, which is really what happens when things take over, that I'm putting it in a place and things aren't going out of balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I love this because I want to talk with you a little bit about that. I do something very similar, but there is a lot of fear from a lot of moms to take that time ahead of time instead of seeing if you have left. And what I've been seeing over and over and over again, not only my own life, but the people that I work with, is if you leave it left, you will never have the time.
Right.
Things will pile and there will be 2 3 4 weeks since, and you're going to be like, holy cow, it's been 4 weeks. So that act of self-love and self-value and self-worthiness of saying, I am blocking this time for my self-care practices, I am blocking this time for the activities with my partner, I'm blocking this time for my kids, and the rest of the world, being business, will fit in the cracks instead of letting the rest of the world fill in your time and try to fill in the cracks the time that is the most valuable for you.
Absolutely.
One thing that I don't know if you ever saw this, but there is a viral video of a professor that teach kids about their priorities with golf balls, rocks, and sand. Saying the golf balls are the most important, your family, your partner, your self care. The rocks are the other ones, like family, like other things that are important, and sand is just the rest. So if you put the sand first and fill the jar with sand, there is not going to be room for golf balls or rocks. But if you do it the other way, you always have in the cracks way to fill that out. So I want you to share with us if you always are being like this, or how do you learn to say, no, these are the most important things. I'm going to block these, and everything else, trust, going back to the beginning when we say trust, that everything else we have will find a time to be complete during the week.
Well, my children are older now. When I was a mom of younger children, you know, my priority was always my children, so whether it was a dance recital, a music performance, or just driving them to school or being with them, that was it. So whatever their schedule was, those were my golf balls. That's where I focused. And I definitely filled in the work. The issue I had back then, though, was then I was working till midnight. I was waking up at 5 in the morning and I was getting burnt out. So I actually committed to stop working at a certain time of day, regardless, and leaving that room. And because there's always going to be a to do list, right? So once I made that commitment, I was amazed. It was hard at first to kind of just say, I'm done, but I'm doing it and I'm still getting done what I need to do for my business. But I have so much more time for my family, for myself. I walk every morning, every night. My husband and I have dinner. I spend quality time with my kids. All of these things did balance out, but I had to like give myself a cutoff. And you know how challenging that is with phones. And I don't bring my phones when I go out to dinner. I'm like, as long as my most important people know where I am, like my husband's got the phone on, that's it. I don't want a phone. I don't want the distractions. So that I think was what I did. It was just a very solid, line. This is my boundary.
And I love that. And that is one of the most scary things to do. But like Allison is saying, for her, and happened to me too, is after you make that, like her favorite phrase, magically things start setting up like that. One of the things that I believe that you can call it whatever you want, God, the universe, whatever, is always giving us up to what we want. So if we are telling the universe or God, yes, I can work until 1 o'clock in the morning every day, you are going to have work every day until 1 o'clock in the morning. But if you say, no, after 6 o'clock, I'm not looking at it, it's amazing how things start working around us. And I admire that, like, I'm going to try it. And if you are around the world and you are having palpitations because you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do what Allison did. Well, I think that would be worth it is try for a week
Right.
and then see what happened and see if the world will literally end or not because you close your computer at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I love her tip about having boundaries about phones. I think that we have a guest before that was talking about that is your phone is not a extension of your body. What are the times, and I'm super guilty of this, so this was a perfect guide reminder for me. What are the times that you are choosing to be phone free, where you are not having that distraction, where you are not wanting to have that push dose of endorphin and dopamine from that instant gratification? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but also what I find so interesting is my kids call me out on my phone all the time because when you are not present with your kid, that's all they want, right? To be with you, to fully be with you. And so I just find that fascinating how much they'll be like, are you on your phone? Like I'll be talking to them on the phone. Are you doing something? And and then I'm like guilty, like, yeah. And then I realized, like, no, when I am with my kids, maybe it's because I trained them because I was so focused when they were younger to be so present, but they call me out on it. And so I just feel like that they deserve, and our relationship deserves me being fully present, and it does for everybody that I'm really choosing to interact with. The interesting thing, Joe, is that at camp, there are no phones. So we live in a world without phones. Teenagers, 15 years old, to have no phones for 7 weeks. So we learn, in that environment to communicate really differently. So when I leave a phone at home, that's like that's my camp self. That's my authentic self. Like it isn't attached to me. So those choices are they've been really, really supportive of me.
I love that. And I love the idea of um realizing that we still can have those oases and those sacred times of no technology, because that you are completely true. Like, are completely right. My 3 year old, at 3 year old, he knows when I am really playing with him and when I am also in my phone. And his energy is changing and he's requesting that presence. And then one of the things that I want to talk now is, I think that is being becoming just a cliche, but it's so true. And that is, we have so limited time with our children.
Mhm.
Like, I was actually thinking about that this week with my 3 year old, because he was like, Mommy, do you want to play with me? Mommy, do you want to play with me? And I was busy doing something else. And then I said, like, very soon he's going to stop asking me to play with him, because now he was going to have to want to play with his friends. So how we can keep that reminder that the reality is we have such a specific limit time with our children before we have to give them back to the world to make their own life.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely, you know, there is a time when they start making friends, they have other interests, things just start taking over their lives and we become less of a priority to them. There is a whole shift that happens. My son just finished college and he moved out on his own a week ago. And so it's sort of like he's adulting now. So I'm going through this full experience and noticing he lived in California while he was in school. So we were on a different time zone. And now he's back. And I'm like, living in different time zones, as you know, can be really challenging. So, I wouldn't speak to him in the normal downtimes of the days. He'd always call me in the middle of the day. And of course, I'd be like on a podcast or doing something. And now I see that our relationship is circling back. So there is hope that when they do go away, they do come back and really want other parts of you when they get older. But yeah, it's to cherish the moments. I mean, that's really what it's about. And realizing when you're not being present and being able to, if you take the distractions out of there, and you just don't bring them into the space, and you have space with your child where you do play, or even if you are watching and you're playing a game together or watching a TV show, whatever it is, you know, it's that extra distraction that takes away. The harder part, Joe, is that now these kids are having phones at earlier ages. So they're the ones that have the distractions. I didn't allow video games in my house growing up and raising my kids, which is why I think my son became interested in chess and music and science and all that, because I knew if he had access to video games, I was going to get my kid back, because he liked to finish things. He needed to get to the next level. I was like, I'm never going to see this kid again. That's a little bit of a distraction. But the point is, the kids also have the phones and the games and the other things that are keeping them from being present. So it takes a lot these days. So creating a space like a summer camp, right, where we just say we're going to have a Saturday and we're just going to play and we're going to put all our technology away. And I've done that, Joe. I've done technology-free Saturdays, no computers, no phones, nothing, and they are just beautiful. Just a whole other experience.
And I think that that is so important to discuss, because now we are having these conflicting ideas, right? So we have the mom saying, yeah, I love everything that you're saying, that especially in the United States, with the violence that we are having, I don't feel comfortable sending my kid to school without a phone, even if he's a third grader or fourth grader, because I want to have that confidence that if anything happened, because unfortunately we need
Right,
to be
that's
prepared
fine.
to something like that happen to all of us, I need to connect with my kid. So there is also a beautiful reminder from Allison that is not a black and white. It's not that if you choose to feel safer with that, then one of the things that I was telling with my husband, I'm like, I think I'm gonna be that mom. But then it is okay to get your kid a phone that don't have unlock everything to access the internet. If the concern is that you're going to be able to communicate with them, there is a way. I love your idea of a Saturday. Is are they going to like it? No. And why? I'm gonna be completely honest. They're going to hate you and they're going to call you a B, because, especially if they are older, because it is as rewarding as cocaine in their tiny brain.
Right.
That reward in the phone is super addictive. So, are they going to be like, oh, mom, thank you so much? This is exactly what I need? No, they are going to scream, they are going to cry, they're going to tell you that you are ruining their lives. And is it still worth it today? Things like that. If you can choose to not have a phone, don't have a phone. But if you choose for other reasons that your kid needs to have a phone, be very clear into limits. Saturday free or weekends. In the weekends, I don't have the worry of you being away from me. On the weekends, Friday after you get to school, you give me your phone and I give it back to you Monday. Or I remember another guest told us that she had a bowl at dinner, and then everybody, all of them, put their phones there. So
I,
as we start, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know that my kids, they prefer to not have the phone sometimes. Like they want to shut the phones up. They're the ones who are like, can we just have a phone free dinner? They're the ones calling it out. So don't, I don't think we should just assume that the kids are going to be miserable, that we're, putting these, boundaries in place, let's just call them, that they're going to see the benefits of that too. And they may resist it at first because it is an addiction. I do really support the kids having phones, and if they need them for school or whatever the connection is that the parents need to feel with their kids feeling safe these days, I'm all for that. And so I do understand that, but we can create safe spaces as a family, like we're home, let's just have these rules, and it could just be as simple as dinner, just having, I think it's like something like 10 minutes a day of being present with your child creates a situation where you have less power struggles, right? So these things where you can be full of present and make these stronger connections with your kids are going to benefit your parenting. It's going to pay off, even though their resistance might be there.
And I think that is beautiful because as a 3-year-old mom, I can see it in a college and adult life mom that, yes, they will fight you at the beginning. Yes, they will not like it at the beginning. And as you keep being kind and firm, and then they start discovering, I kind of like this. Like we are playing and having a lot of fun. Eventually, they are going to get like adult children like Allison, where they're going to be like, oh, it's been a while. Let's going to have a phone free dinner because even if at the beginning they don't feel like that is fun, as they start finding, like you were saying, that unconditional attention in that space to be them is going to be fantastic. Alison, as we start closing the show, I would love for you to share one message with everybody that is watching us about that work balance and about how we can be the best version of ourselves for our children. And then if they fall in love with the idea of having a camper life, a happy camper life, how they can find you and all the amazing things that you are doing in the world.
Well, I'd say that it's a challenge, and be gentle with yourselves. It, as you said, there's going to be times like in the summer where, one part of me is going to be taken over. It might be even a year of raising a newborn where it really is hard to find that time for yourself when you're trying to balance. So it's to not, I think it's something to strive for, but not to beat yourself up over. If you can carve out and find some joy for yourself in every day, honestly, and have that connection, I think that's what keeps me grounded. So I look for that balance on a daily basis of just making sure I'm included in my life, right? Include yourself in your life. So that would be my best advice on that. As far as Happy Camper Live goes, it's so fun that you're from Colombia. We actually have a lot of people on our site from Colombia as well. And I think that's what's so interesting. It's this ability to see something different and new, get a little peek inside what American summer camps are like. They actually are super safe places to go. We have lots of security measures in place. So if you ever do consider to send your kid to summer camp, just know that there's a lot of different camps for all kinds of different people. There's a camp for every kid. And no matter what camp you choose, just having the experience of summer camp will really benefit a child. So to be able to have a virtual experience doing that, you're getting that benefit as well. So check out the site, and also, just know that kids camp brings kids joy. So try to bring that joy to your kids outside of this big, enormous schedule of school and play dates and all these other things that you sort of pile on the list. Try to help your kid find their passion, what brings them joy. It's so fascinating that it's so different for all of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, moms, if you're curious, go and find Allison at happycampyourlife.com. Send her a message. Make sure that you are following her and Happy Camper Life in all social media, and also Joe Unicorn Coach in the social media. Let us know how this message land with you. Let us know your questions, your doubts, and everything else. Allison, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. And for all of you, my beautiful audience, please remember that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.